I want to talk to somebody today who's been feeling like the war is out there, but the real battle is in HERA, because I came to tell you the devil you're fighting may not be in your finances, may not be in your family, may not be in your job. It might just be in your emotions. We dress it up, we hide it well, but the truth is your anger, your fear, your shame, your doubt, they're running the show. You've been losing battles not because you're not strong, but because your emotions have been sitting on the throne of your life. Oh, I wish I had somebody in here who knew what I was talking about. You can't walk into your purpose carrying emotional baggage from your past. You can't lead, you can't love, you can't rise when your emotions are running wild and running you. So today, I ain't here to give you a feel-good message. I'm here to sound the alarm. I'm here to tell you your emotions are your biggest enemy. But God, yes, God has given you authority to take the wheel back. Are you ready to break free? Emotions are an undeniable part of the human experience. They color our world, inform our decisions, and give depth to our relationships. But the danger arises when we allow emotions to take the driver's seat in our lives. When emotions become the authority rather than the advisor, we find ourselves reacting instead of responding, surviving instead of thriving. Many people are led by what they feel in the moment rather than what though to be true in their spirit. Just because something feels good doesn't mean it's good for you, and just because something feels hard doesn't mean it's not necessary for your growth. Feelings fluctuate. One moment you're on top of the mountain and the next you're in valley, but your purpose doesn't change with your mood. Your calling isn't dependent on your comfort. We must stop equating emotional ease with divine approval. Some of the most powerful moves of God in your life will not feel good at all. In fact, they might hurt, stretch, or confront you. But if you are constantly guided by your emotions, you'll run from every challenge that was designed to elevate you. That's why maturity demands that you learn to separate what you feel from what you believe. You might feel unworthy, but you are chosen. You might feel abandoned, but God is with you. You might feel like giving up, but you're closer than you think. Emotions are indicators, not dictators. They can tell you where you are, but they should never tell you who you are. Too many people are living small, safe, and stagnant lives because they are afraid to do something that doesn't feel easy or comfortable. But greatness requires that you act on truth, not on emotion. Leadership, discipline, faith. None of these are rooted in feelings. They are choices made in spite of them. It's time to reclaim the power you've been giving away to temporary emotions. It's time to let truth lead and put emotions back in their proper place. Uncontrolled emotions are like wildfires. Once ignited, they spread fast and leave destruction in their wake. When you let emotions lead without checking them, they begin to distort how you see people, how you see situations, and even how you see yourself. Anger unchecked turns into bitterness. Fear unchecked becomes paralysis. Insecurity unchecked turns into self-sabotage. And what's worse is that most of this happens quietly under the surface. While everything on the outside looks normal, But beneath the surface, destiny is dying a slow death because emotion has been given too much authority. You start interpreting every delay as rejection. You start viewing correction as criticism. You isolate because you feel misunderstood when really you never gave anyone a chance to understand. Emotions, when not managed, will twist facts into false beliefs and build narratives that keep you stuck. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. That's how people walk away from good jobs, healthy relationship, divine assignments, all because they reacted emotionally in a moment of pressure. Your destiny requires clarity, and clarity cannot live where chaos rules. Emotions are loud, and they'll drown out wisdom if you let them that's why it's not enough to just feel something. You need to question what you're feeling, process it, and then respond with intention. We live in a culture that glorifies being real, but too often being real just an excuse to be reckless with your words, your actions, and your relationships. Just because something feels urgent emotionally doesn't mean it deserves an immediate reaction. When you allow emotions to distort reality, they become a tool for destruction rather than insight. Greatness requires emotional discipline. You cannot carry out your purpose while being a slave to every mood swing or impulse. You've got to grow to a place where you feel deeply but move wisely. Because the truth is, you don't just need strength for the storms around you, you need it for the storm within. And until you confront that storm and learn to master your emotions, your destiny will always be at risk. Emotional triggers are not random reactions. They are rooted in unresolved experiences that have left a mark on the soul. Many of the things that cause tense emotional responses today are actually echoes from the past, memories, traumas, and pains that were never fully processed or healed. When someone says something that sets you off, it's not always about what they said, but what it reminded you of. That sharp anger, that sudden fear, that overwhelming sadness, it often isn't about the present moment, but about old wounds being reopened. Emotional triggers are signals pointing to places in your life where healing still needs to happen. But if you ignore those signals or let them run wild, they will control you. They'll shape how you see the world, how you treat people, and how you show up in important areas of your life. You'll start building emotional walls to protect yourself, but those same walls will become the barriers that block love, trust, and growth. When you don't deal with the root of your emotional triggers, you end up transferring pain to people who didn't cause it. You respond to a boss like you're talking to your controlling parent. You push away a loyal friend because you're afraid they'll leave like someone else did. You sabotage relationships because your soul still expects betrayal. Unhealed wounds have a way of whispering lies to you, convincing you that the past will always repeat itself. But healing is a choice, and so is awareness. You have to take the time to ask yourself why you react the way you do. Where does that fear come from? What moment in your history does that frustration trace back to? You cannot conquer what you will not confront. God didn't design us to be prisoners of our past. He gives us the ability to renew our minds, to be transformed to walk in freedom, but you can't access that freedom if you're still emotionally chained to yesterday's pain. The trigger is not the enemy. It's the invitation. It's the opportunity to finally get free from what's been hiding in the dark corners of your heart. When you learn to trace your emotional reactions back to their roots, you start gaining control instead of being controlled. You stop repeating cycles. You stop blaming others. You start healing. And in that healing, you begin to find peace, clarity, and strength. Emotional triggers lose their power when you face them with truth, process them with grace, and refuse to carry what God never meant for you to hold. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. Desire might get you started, but only discipline will keep you going when the feeling fades. Too many people confuse motivation with commitment. They think as long as they feel inspired, they can move forward, but life doesn't hand out breakthroughs based on moods. It rewards consistency, sacrifice, and focus. Desire is fleeting. One moment you're fired up with passion, the next you'll question everything because it got hard, uncomfortable, or slow. But discipline shows up regardless. Discipline wakes you up when you'd rather sleep. It keeps you in the room when you want to walk out. It silences the excuses and demands action. Without discipline, emotions run the show. And when emotions are in charge, purpose becomes optional. You start operating off feelings instead of values. You skip steps. You break your own rules. And eventually, you sabotage the very thing you prayed for. The truth is, your feelings will lie to you. They'll tell you to quit when you need to push. They'll tell you it's not worth it when you're on the edge of a breakthrough. That's why direction must be determined by discipline, not desire. Successful people aren't always the most talented or the most passionate. They're just the most consistent. They've learned to do what needs to be done even when they don't feel like it. They've trained their minds to serve their mission, not their emotions. Purpose is not easy. It comes with pressure, process, and pain. And if you rely on desire alone, you'll back out every time it gets difficult. But when you build the habit of discipline, you develop the strength to finish what you start. Discipline tells your emotions you're allowed to exist, but you're not allowed to lead. It gives you boundaries. It gives you structure, and it gives you the ability to move forward even when nothing around you is encouraging you to do so. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not always exciting, but it is powerful. It is reliable, and it is the key to fulfilling your calling. You don't need another wave of motivation. You need a made-up mind. When your direction is anchored in discipline, you stop chasing moments and start building momentum. You stop depending on how you feel and start walking in who you are called to be. Faith is not the absence of emotion, but the authority over it. It doesn't mean you won't feel fear, doubt, anger, or sadness. It means those emotions no longer get to dictate your actions. Faith gives you a higher voice to listen to when the noise of your feelings gets loud. Emotions say, you can't. But faith says, God already made a way. Emotions say, you're not enough. But faith says, His strength is made perfect in your weakness. When you live by faith, you make decisions based on truth, not temporary conditions. That's why faith is not just a spiritual word, it's a strategy for emotional survival. If you don't walk by faith, you'll be trapped in cycles of reacting to everything you feel. One bad day can throw off your entire purpose. One disappointment can cause you to retreat and shut down. One offense can keep you stuck in bitterness for years. But when faith rises, your perspective shifts. You start seeing beyond the moment. You begin to trust what God said more than what you feel. Faith helps you pause before you react, reflect before you speak, and choose what's right over what's easy. Without faith, your emotions will become your God. They will demand sacrifice, obedience, and devotion. But faith puts God back in his rightful place as the one who leads. Faith reminds you that emotions are real, but they're not always right. You may feel abandoned, but faith says you are never alone. You may feel anxious, but faith says his peace surpasses all understanding. Faith arms you with truth when your emotions try to deceive you. And let's be honest, emotions can lie. They shift with circumstances. They respond to pressure. But faith is anchored. It stands even when everything around you shakes. It reminds you who you are and whose you are, even when your feelings are trying to rewrite the narrative. Faith doesn't eliminate the storm. It gives you peace in the middle of it. It doesn't erase the emotion. It gives you power over it. When faith leads, you don't have to suppress what you feel. You just don't let it control your direction. You submit your emotions to something greater. You walk forward even with fear in your heart because faith tells you the promise is still good. You forgive even when you're still hurting because faith tells you that healing is coming. You stay the course even when it feels pointless because faith says God is working behind the scenes. Faith is your authority. It's how you rise above emotional chaos and walk in divine clarity